You can change your peak labels or annotations by right-clicking in a display and then going to Cycle Peak Labels. Alternatively, you can simply type PL. This will move you through 4 different ways of displaying your peak labels. The default option is what we call the short option. It gives you the residue type, residue number and atom name, and compresses this where those are the same in 2 or more dimensions. The next option is the full option. Here the residue type, number and atom name are given for each dimension separately. The third option is to display the project ID or PID. This is the same as what you will see in your NMR chain, where you have the chain followed by the residue number, residue type, and then the atom type, each separated by a dot. If some of these have not been assigned yet, you can see in this peak down here, then they are either just not specified, or in the case where this atom residue hasn't been assigned, it's an NMR residue, it's got the @ symbol, both for the residue and for the chain. And then the final option for the peak annotation is what we call the minimal annotation, and it just gives you the residue type and number. You can also change the peak symbol. You can do this by right-clicking in the display area and going to Cycle Peak Symbols, or simply type PS. The default option is to show the peak symbol as a cross. The second option is to show an ellipse describing the line width of the peak. Where the line width has been determined for the peak, for instance through fitting, then a complete ellipse is shown, like in some of these peaks in the top half of the spectrum. In the lower half of the spectrum are peaks for which the line width has not been determined. Here the ellipse is just a dotted circle. The next option then is a filled line width option. Again, it's filled where the line width has been determined. Where it hasn't, you get this kind of flower symbol. And then finally, you can show your peak symbols as plus signs. You can also change all these things by going to this little gear symbol on your spectrum display, and then you can set your symbol type, your symbol annotation, and also the size and thickness of the symbol. And this emphasises the fact that all of these properties are properties linked to the display and not to the peak list itself. You can change the default options if you want. You can go to Project Preferences or type Control or Command comma, go to the Spectrum tab, and then further down you get peak annotations, symbols, symbol size and thickness, and you can set what you would like to have as your default options across all of your projects. You can also decide not to display certain peak lists. So if you go to the Spectrum button on the Spectrum toolbar and then right-click on here, you can go to Peak List and then Show All, Hide All, or each separate peak list will be listed and you can toggle them on and off as you would like. And then finally, what is a property of the peak list is the colour of the symbols and the annotations. So if you go to your peak list and double click on it in the sidebar, then you get a little peak list properties pop up where you can select what colour you would like things to be, and you can change them to whatever you would like.